I was standing in the hallway, still holding the shattered photo frame in my shaking hands, when I heard my sister whisper behind me, "It's done. They believe everything." For a second, I couldn't breathe. My chest locked, my ears rang, and I knew, before she even turned around, that my entire life had already changed. I stepped closer, the broken glass cutting into my palm, but I didn't feel the pain. "Zara, what did you tell them?" My voice trembled like it didn't belong to me. She didn't flinch. She didn't even hide that smirk pulling at the edge of her lips. Instead, she tucked her hair behind her ear calmly, as if she hadn't just destroyed our home with a single sentence. "I told them the truth," she said. But the way she said truth made my stomach twist. Or at least the version they were willing to believe. She shrugged lightly. Her eyes drifted toward the living room where our parents were still arguing, voices rising, glass breaking, lives collapsing. Something hot and violent rose in my throat. "Zara, why?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. It sounded desperate, raw, almost childlike. She turned her face toward me fully now, and for the first time in my life, I saw no love there, no sister, no family, just something cold and victorious. "Because," she whispered, stepping closer so only I could hear her, "you never deserved the life you were getting." My legs nearly gave out. I grabbed the wall for balance, the wallpaper peeling beneath my grip. I felt like the floor disappeared from under me. Mom's shouting grew louder, my name in every sentence, disappointment dripping from her voice like poison. Dad's silence cut sharper than her words. And all this time, Zara stood there unbothered, proud, breathing steady while my world burned at her feet. "You ruined everything," I whispered. She smiled, small, cruel, satisfied. "No," she said. "I just took back what was mine." I didn't know then, but that moment was only the beginning of the destruction she had planned. Mom stormed into the hallway before I could force another word out. Her face was red, eyes swollen, breath sharp, hands trembling with the rage she didn't bother to hide anymore. She looked at me the same way she looked at broken things she didn't want to repair. "Is it true?" she demanded. No greeting, no question, no attempt to understand. Just accusation. Heavy, suffocating, final. I opened my mouth, but Zara stepped in front of her dramatically, placing a hand on her arm. "Mom, please, don't do this right now. She's not in the right state to admit anything." Her voice shook with fake concern, the kind that tasted bitter before I heard it fully. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. She already knew she'd won this round.
"I didn't do anything," I said quietly, but every word felt like it drowned halfway out of my throat. "Mom, you're believing something without even asking me. Don't you dare twist this," Mom snapped, her voice cracking. "We gave you everything. Everything. And this is how you repay us? By lying? By dragging our family name through filth?" Her words hit like hands, each one smacking into me harder than the last. I stumbled a step back. Zara didn't move. She just watched, silent, satisfied. The predator letting the hunter take the shot. Don't miss a single moment. Hit subscribe and watch how every lie, every betrayal finally meets its reckoning. "What did she tell you?" I asked, barely able to breathe. "Mom, tell me exactly what she said." "Oh, so now she's a liar." Mom scoffed. "Your sister has never lied to me. Never." Those 4 words cut deeper than any betrayal. Sarah lowered her eyes, pretending to hold back tears. "Mom, please, I didn't want to tell you, but I couldn't watch her hurt this family anymore." What did I do? I whispered. Tell me. Say it. My voice cracked open like glass splitting. Mom inhaled sharply, as if repeating it burned her tongue. She told us you stole money from your father, from our accounts, thousands, and you planned to blame her. My heart stopped. It didn't beat. It didn't move. It just froze, midair. What? My voice echoed through the hallway. Mom, that's not true. That's Zara. What the hell? Zara looked away, her shoulders shaking like she was overwhelmed with guilt. I didn't want anyone to know, but the bank called Dad. They said the transfer matched your phone's IP. It's all in your name. I felt the ground tilt. For a second, I thought I would faint. It was too perfect, too arranged, too planned. She had prepared this. Mom grabbed my wrist suddenly, her nails digging into my skin. You disgust me. Zara gently touched her shoulder. Please, Mom, she's struggling. Don't be too harsh. And that false kindness was the exact moment I realized my sister wasn't just jealous. She was destroying me piece by piece, deliberately, calmly, with a plan she had rehearsed long before tonight. And I wasn't even close to knowing the worst part yet. Mom let go of my wrist only when Dad's footsteps echoed from the living room. His pace was slow, heavy, like each step carried the weight of disappointment he couldn't yet express. He stopped a few feet away from me, his face stiff, emotionless. But his eyes told the story before his mouth did. He believed her. He believed every word my sister had created. Dad, I whispered, searching his expression for even a flicker of trust. Please, you know I would never do something like this. He didn't respond, not with words. He just turned the phone screen toward me, the bank transfer page glowing brightly. My name, my number, my account, the evidence Zara had planted so perfectly. I felt my throat close. He finally asked, Why? Why would you do this to us, to your own family? I didn't, I cried, stepping forward. Dad, I swear on everything, on my life, I didn't touch a single rupee. Zara is lying. She's framing me. Please, you have to listen. Enough. The word slapped harder than any hand could. Zara lowered her eyes again, tears collecting like she had rehearsed this scene. Dad, don't be angry with her. Maybe she had a reason. Maybe she felt overlooked or unloved. I stared at her. My heart didn't break. It ignited. Why are you doing this to me, Zara? My voice trembled. What did I ever take from you? She finally lifted her gaze, letting only me see the real expression beneath the fake tears. Victory. Possession. A silent message. This is only the beginning. Dad exhaled hard and walked to Mom. They whispered, fast, urgent, final. I didn't need to hear the words. I could already feel the judgment closing in around me like a trap. Then Dad looked back at me and said quietly, You need to leave this house for a while until we figure out what to do. My body went cold. Dad, no, please, listen to me. Zara covered her mouth, pretending to cry. Maybe space will help her. Maybe she'll admit it when she calms down. Admit what? I screamed, the pain clawing out of my chest. I didn't do anything. Zara, look at me and say it. Say that I did it. She turned her face away like she couldn't bear to see me. And that small movement, that staged avoidance, sealed my fate in their eyes. The door behind me felt a million miles away, As Dad said, pack your things. Now. My knees weakened. I grabbed the wall again, breathing deep, but not deep enough. The house I grew up in, the family I protected, the parents I respected, all crumbling because of one person, my own sister. She stood behind them like a puppet master, hiding her strings. And I realized she didn't just want me to leave the house.
She wanted me erased. But she had forgotten one thing. When someone loses everything, they become someone they were never afraid to be. And that was going to be her biggest mistake. I went to my room slowly, not because I needed time to think, but because every step felt like I was walking through the ashes of a home that wasn't mine anymore. The door clicked softly behind me. The silence inside felt louder than the shouting outside. My hand shook as I grabbed the suitcase from under my bed. I had packed it 1,000 times in childhood, pretending I was going on adventures, not getting thrown out of my own life. The zipper scraped harshly, and every sound felt like it echoed through the walls. I sat on the edge of my bed for a long moment, staring at the empty suitcase. "This is real," I whispered to myself. My voice was small, trembling, unfamiliar. They're actually sending me away. I pressed my palms against my thighs to keep them from shaking, but it didn't help. I felt like my body wasn't mine, like I was watching myself from far away. Tears blurred my vision, and I wiped them so aggressively that my skin burned. A soft knock on my door made me stiffen. Zara didn't wait for permission. She pushed the door open, stepped inside, and closed it behind her with a slow click. She didn't approach me. She stood near the door, arms crossed lightly, calm, composed, completely unbothered. She watched me for a few seconds, like she was analyzing the damage she caused. Then she said, "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I stared at her. "Why are you doing this to me?" My voice cracked in the middle, but I didn't care. "What did I ever do to you? Tell me. Just tell me once." She tilted her head, almost amused. "Why does there always have to be a reason? Maybe I'm just tired of living in your shadow." My shadow? The words felt unreal. "Zara, I never competed with you. Never. You're my sister." She cut me off with a small, almost bored laugh. "Exactly. You never competed and somehow still got everything. Their love, their trust, their praise, their attention." "That's not true," I whispered. "Oh, but it is," she said softly. "For once, I want to be the daughter they rely on, the daughter they trust, the daughter who fixes things while you're out there breaking them." "I didn't break anything," I cried. "You did." She stepped closer, her voice lowering. "No, I simply exposed what they were ready to believe." It hit me then. The truth didn't matter. Facts didn't matter. Evidence didn't matter. What mattered was belief, and she owned theirs completely. She walked toward my dresser, ran her fingers over my folded scarves, my perfume bottles, my childhood jewelry, touching everything like she was already replacing me, piece by piece. "When I'm gone, are you finally going to be happy?" She stopped touching my things. Her shoulders stiffened. Happiness, she repeated. Who mentioned anything about happiness? I frowned. Then what do you want? She turned slowly, her expression shifting, a shadow crossing her eyes. Peace, she whispered, and I can't have that as long as you're here. The words froze me. She walked to the door, paused, looked at me one last time and said, "Hurry up! They're waiting." Then she left. And the silence she left behind was colder than betrayal itself. I knew then leaving the house wasn't the worst part. The worst part was knowing my sister wanted me gone permanently, and she was willing to destroy our entire family to achieve it. I packed my clothes mechanically, folding them even though every part of me wanted to throw things, scream, break something, anything, to match the chaos inside me. But anger couldn't save me. Not tonight. Not against a betrayal this sharp, this calculated, this personal. My hands hovered over a small wooden box in my drawer. My childhood memories. Bracelets Zara made for me, notes we passed in school, photos of birthdays where we blew candles together. I picked up the bracelet she tied on my wrist the night before my exams, telling me, "You'll always have me." Now it felt like poison in my hands. I closed the box and put it deep inside the suitcase, not because I wanted to bring it, but because I didn't want Zara touching it after I left. Another knock. This one heavier. Dad entered. His presence filled the room the way storm clouds fill a sky. Dark, heavy, ready to pour. He didn't look at me directly. Instead, he looked at the half-packed suitcase. "Are you done?" he asked softly. The softness hurt more than shouting would have. "No," I replied, wiping my cheeks quietly. "Just finishing." He walked closer, but not close enough to comfort me. His eyes drifted over my things, like he was memorizing everything before it disappeared. "Your mother is upset," he said, voice tight. "So am I whispered. He nodded once, but didn't disagree. That was the painful part. He knew something didn't feel right, but he didn't trust me enough to question it. "Dad, look at me." My voice broke. He hesitated, then lifted his eyes. "Do you really think I could ever steal from you?" I asked. He exhaled long and slow. "I don't want to believe it." "But you do," I finished for him. Silence. And silence was the answer. My heart twisted, but I forced myself to continue. "Did you even ask me before deciding?" His jaw tightened. "We had enough evidence." "No," I said. "You had enough doubt." He flinched slightly, like the truth struck a nerve. Before he could speak, Zara appeared behind him in the hallway. She didn't come in. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was like a dark signature at the bottom of my fate. Dad looked back at her. "Go wait downstairs." She nodded obediently, giving him a concerned daughter look that made me sick. The moment she turned away, her expression dropped, cold and victorious. He sighed. "We'll talk later. For now, just pack." He left the room without waiting for my response. The door shut. I stood completely still, the air around me thick with betrayal. I felt like a ghost walking through a home that no longer recognized me. A stranger, a problem, a disappointment. Zara had taken everything from me tonight. My parents' trust, my safety, my voice. But what she didn't realize, what she could never anticipate, was that this betrayal was stitching a new version of me together. A version who would not break quietly. A version who would one day watch her face the karma she'd been inviting with every lie she told. By the time I zipped the suitcase shut, my hands had gone numb. I kept waiting to wake up to find out this was some twisted nightmare where Zara was still my sister and my parents still believed in me. But reality stayed sharp, unforgiving. I lifted the suitcase and the weight of it felt symbolic, like I was carrying the broken pieces of my place in this family. When I stepped out of the room, Mom was at the bottom of the stairs, arms crossed, eyes cold. Zara stood slightly behind her, pretending to support her like the perfect daughter. Dad waited near the door, keys in hand. I descended each step like I was walking toward my own exile. Mom didn't wait for me to reach them. "Give me your phone." My breath halted. "Why?" "Because we need to check something," she said stiffly. I held it tighter. "You mean Zara needs to check something?" Her eyes flared and she snatched it out of my hand before I could react. She handed it straight to my sister, like Zara was the authority, not the criminal. Zara tapped quickly, scrolling through my apps, my messages, my bank alerts, searching for anything she could twist into more proof. She held the phone like it already belonged to her. Then she cleared her throat. "Dad, it's here. The approval text from the bank, see?" Dad took the phone, scanned the screen, and nodded with disappointment thicker than the walls around us. "Dad," I whispered, "you know they send automatic verification messages for almost everything."
Zara spoke before he could reply. "But why is it only on her phone?" Mom glared at me like she'd found the final nail in my coffin. "You're done lying." I felt something inside me collapse completely. Dad grabbed the keys. "Let's go. I'll drop you at Aisha's house. Stay there until we decide what happens next." "Decide what?" I cried. "My future? My freedom? Whether I get to come home again?" No one answered. Zara placed a gentle hand on Mom's back, whispering, "It's for the best. She needs help." Help. That word shook me more than the accusation. She was building a narrative. Not only was I a thief, I was unstable. Dad opened the front door. Cold air rushed in. As I stepped outside, Zara leaned slightly toward me and whispered so only I could hear, "This is step 1. My blood ran cold. I turned sharply. "What does that mean?" She smiled faintly. "You'll see." I stared at her long enough to memorize every inch of her face, the mask she wore for everyone else, the monster she revealed only to me. Dad called my name impatiently. I walked toward the car. As I climbed inside, I saw Mom wrap her arm around Zara, comforting her, as if she was the one being thrown out. Zara leaned into her shoulder, expression frightened, vulnerable, innocent. A performance worthy of awards. The car door shut. Dad started driving. And I watched through the window as Zara stood there under the porch light, her smile sharp and small. The kind of smile that promised destruction. But she didn't know something. She wasn't the only one who could play long games. Her betrayal wasn't breaking me. It was awakening me. The drive was silent. Dad didn't speak, and I couldn't either. Every bump in the road felt like a reminder that my life had shifted overnight. My childhood home, my family, my sense of belonging, all of it was gone. And it was Zara's doing. Every single piece. Finally, Dad broke the silence. His voice was low, almost defeated. "Listen, I don't know what's true. I don't know what isn't. But right now, you need to stay there. For everyone's sake." "For everyone's sake," I whispered bitterly. "Do you mean for her sake?" He didn't answer. I hugged my knees to my chest, staring out the window at the streets blurring past. I couldn't stop thinking about her words. This is step 1. Step of what?
How far was she willing to go? What else would she destroy before she felt satisfied? I thought about Mom's glare, Dad's quiet disappointment, and the way Zara had orchestrated everything so perfectly. The way she had practiced that fake vulnerability, that innocent face, to convince everyone. My stomach twisted violently. How could she? How could she be like this? A small voice inside me answered before I could stop it. Because she's a coward. Because she wants control. Because she's terrified of being invisible.
I clenched my fists. If she thought this would break me, she had another thing coming. I arrived at Aisha's house, a family friend. They welcomed me with warm hugs, but I barely registered it. Their concern washed over me, but it was meaningless. I felt like a ghost in my own life. That night, I lay on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling. Every memory of Zara's betrayal played over and over. Every whispered word, every calculated glance, every step she had taken to make my parents doubt me. I finally whispered into the darkness, alone, "This isn't over." Not by a long shot. Somewhere deep inside, I felt a shift. The fear, the despair, the helplessness, they were all still there, but buried underneath. A new resolve had begun to grow. And it would grow until the day she finally faced the consequences of her actions. The next morning, I woke up with a heaviness that wouldn't lift. Every corner of the guest room felt unfamiliar, yet it was safer than home. At least here, I didn't have to see Zara's smug face, didn't have to feel her control pressing down on me like a physical weight. Aisha brought me tea and sat on the edge of the bed. "You're safe here," she said softly. "Don't think about what's waiting at home for now. Just breathe." I nodded, but I couldn't. My mind was a storm, circling the betrayal, the lies, the way she had manipulated everyone. Safe? She's not just going to let it end here. She never does. She planned this. Everything. Aisha reached out and held my hand. "Then plan your next step. Don't let her win by waiting. You know her better than anyone." Her words sank in slowly. That was the first spark of clarity I'd felt since the night everything fell apart. She was counting on me to crumble. She wanted me out of the picture so she could dominate, manipulate, rewrite everything to suit her. But if I played my cards carefully, if I stayed calm and patient, I could turn the tables. I spent the day thinking, pacing the small guest room. Each detail of that night replayed vividly. The whispered words, the calculated glances, every step she had taken to make my parents doubt me. My stomach churned, not with fear, but with determination. I realized something terrifying and empowering at the same time. She didn't just betray me. She underestimated me. She assumed I would give up, that I would beg for forgiveness, that I would vanish quietly.
But I wouldn't. That night, alone in my room, I made my first decision. I would collect proof. Every lie she told, every manipulation, every secret plan. I would rebuild my story, truth by truth, fact by fact, and when the time came, she would face the consequences of her own cruelty. I whispered into the darkness, my voice steady this time. "You wanted to erase me, Zara, but you just started my awakening. You will regret underestimating me." And for the first time in days, sleep came. Not peace, but a calm that carried the fire of resolve. The next few days passed like a blur of planning and quiet observation. I couldn't risk contacting my parents directly. They were still caught in her web of lies. But I could move in the shadows, gathering information, watching her patterns, noticing every small slip she made. I began with small things, listening to conversations, checking social media updates, noting the friends she confided in. Every detail became a thread I could pull. Every slip she made was a crack in her carefully built facade. It was exhausting. Every night I lay awake, replaying every interaction in my head. How she smiled at Mom, how she whispered words that twisted the truth, how she had made herself look like the innocent, wronged daughter. It was brilliant in its cruelty, but I knew brilliance could falter under pressure. Then, one afternoon, I received an unexpected tip. A mutual friend, someone who had been quietly observing Zara, called me. "She's bragging," they whispered nervously, "about everything she did to you. She thinks no one can touch her." That was the break I needed. I felt a cold satisfaction creeping in. She had made a mistake. Bragging meant overconfidence. Overconfidence meant vulnerability. I began to plan more aggressively. Each piece of evidence, each witness, each fragment of truth would be assembled like a puzzle. I would show my parents the real Zara, the sister who betrayed, lied, and manipulated, the sister who thought she could control everything without consequence. Every day, I wrote in a small notebook, dates, times, words, reactions. Every moment became fuel, every detail became a weapon, and in the quiet of the night, I whispered to myself, "She wanted to erase me. Now, I'm going to make sure she erases herself, one truth at a time." The game had begun.
A week later, I finally saw an opening. Zara had left her phone unattended while she went to meet a friend. It was a small chance, but it was enough. My hands trembled as I unlocked it, not out of fear, but anticipation. I found messages she had sent, messages bragging about framing me, about how easily she manipulated our parents, about every lie she had carefully planted. Each line cut like a knife, but instead of breaking me, it fueled a darker resolve. I copied every message, every photo, every transaction she had manipulated. It was meticulous, painstaking work, but this was my weapon. That evening, I sat in the guest room, reviewing everything, piecing together the story no one else knew. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was criminal, calculated, and methodical. I could see the full extent of what she had done. And then I paused. Something in one of the messages made my blood run cold. A name I hadn't expected. Someone outside our family was helping her. Someone trusted. Someone who could have brought real destruction if I didn't act carefully. The realization hit me like a punch. The stakes were higher than I thought. Zara wasn't just ambitious, she was dangerous, and she had allies I had never considered. But beneath the fear, beneath the danger, I felt a surge of clarity. I had the truth. I had the power to expose her, and she had underestimated me completely. I leaned back in my chair, letting the adrenaline settle into calculated focus. This wasn't just about reclaiming my place in the family anymore. It was about exposing the full scope of her betrayal and making sure she paid for every calculated, cruel move she had made. I whispered to myself, a promise more than a thought. This ends on my terms, Zara, and when it does, karma will have the last word. The next day, I began reaching out carefully. Old friends, distant relatives, anyone who might have noticed the lies Zara had spun. I had to be cautious. If Zara sensed I was moving, she would tighten her grip, cover her tracks, and everything I was building would collapse. At lunch, Aisha reminded me softly, "Patience is your best weapon. Don't act too quickly." I nodded, though my mind was racing. Each passing hour without action felt like a betrayal of my own future. Then I discovered something that made my blood run cold. A financial trail I hadn't noticed before. Small transactions, transfers disguised as routine payments. She had siphoned money, not just from the family account, but from external investments. My parents had no idea. The betrayal was bigger than I had imagined. The realization hit me like a storm. If I revealed this carefully, I could show the full depth of her lies. I could prove she had orchestrated a complete web of manipulation, not just a single frame-up. But then another message appeared, one I wasn't expecting. Someone from her circle, someone I thought was loyal to me, had been feeding her information. She had known I was planning, even now. My heart pounded. I hadn't just been betrayed by my sister. I had been watched. Every move I had made, every precaution I thought was safe, had been under scrutiny. And yet, the fire inside me only grew. They had made one crucial mistake. I wasn't desperate. I wasn't careless. I was patient, meticulous, and fueled by betrayal. I leaned back, closed my eyes, and whispered to the silence around me. You think you've won, Zara, but the truth is only starting to surface, and karma has a long memory. Over the next few days, I carefully documented everything. Every message, every financial transaction, every lie Zara had spread. I created a detailed timeline showing how she had manipulated every family member, how she had isolated me, and how she had turned our parents against me. Each piece felt like a small step toward reclaiming my life. One evening, I called my cousin, someone who had always been close to both of us. I spoke softly, carefully, letting him know what I had discovered. At first, he hesitated, unsure whether to believe me. But as I explained each piece, as I walked him through the evidence, I saw the doubt shift in his eyes. He was horrified. That's insane, he said finally, voice shaking. She planned this? Against you? Against your parents? I nodded. Yes, and it's bigger than we think. I need your help. We need witnesses, confirmation, people who can speak the truth when the time comes. He agreed to help discreetly, promising to gather others. I felt a flicker of hope, the first in days. For the first time, I realized I wasn't completely alone. That night, I looked at Zara's messages again. Every detail she had thought hidden, every boast, every slip, it was all in my hands now. I smiled faintly. She had been so careful, so confident, but her arrogance had blinded her. And then I noticed something even more shocking, a plan she had set in motion that could have destroyed not just me, but anyone who tried to expose her. She had underestimated my resolve. She had underestimated my intelligence.
I whispered into the darkness of the guest room, my voice steady. You thought you could erase me, Zara. You thought I'd disappear quietly. But the real game is just beginning, and this time, you'll be the one who loses everything. The next morning, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in weeks. The truth was no longer scattered fragments. I had shaped it into a complete story. Now all I needed was the right moment to reveal it. Timing mattered. If I rushed, she would twist it. If I waited too long, she could cause more damage. After breakfast, Aisha knocked on my door. She came by, she whispered. Your sister. She was looking for you. My heart stuttered, but I kept my face steady. Did she say anything? Aisha swallowed. She told your parents she was worried. She said you might be unstable, that you could hurt yourself. A beat of silence passed. Then anger pulsed through me, cold, controlled, sharpened. That was her next move, to paint me as fragile, irrational, dangerous. It was brilliant in its cruelty. She wasn't just defending her lies. She was shaping the narrative before I could reveal the truth.
She's accelerating, I murmured. She knows I'm not broken anymore. Aisha placed a hand on my shoulder. Then you need to act soon, before she destroys whatever is left. That afternoon, I called my cousin again. More people had come forward. Friends who had overheard Zara mocking me, relatives who had noticed strange changes in our parents' behavior, even a former friend of hers who admitted Zara often bragged about controlling people. Piece by piece, the walls of her deception were cracking. But the real twist came when I received a voice note. Someone anonymously recorded her admitting everything, every lie, every manipulation, every calculated step she had taken. Hearing her voice, so calm, so proud, sent chills down my spine. I played it again and again, until the fear melted into something darker, steadier. Power. It was enough to expose her completely, enough to bring karma to her doorstep. That night, I stared out the window, feeling the first true breath of freedom in months. She had pushed me into darkness, but she had also lit the fire that would burn her lies down. I whispered to myself, "Tomorrow, Zara, the truth finds you." The next day, I returned home, not to confront her, not yet, but to plant the first seeds of the reckoning she would face. I needed proof, witnesses, and the perfect moment. Zara's arrogance was her weakness. She thought she had won completely. She didn't see the storm brewing. I walked carefully through the house, unnoticed. Mom and Dad were busy with routine chores, still suspicious, still hesitant, still blind to the real truth. Zara was in her room, humming softly, pretending to be the innocent, loving sister she projected to the world. My stomach churned with rage and anticipation. I began leaving subtle hints, notes, reminders, things only those paying close attention would notice. A small message to Dad about a bank discrepancy, a discreet note to a family friend who had once doubted me. Slowly, the walls of her carefully built empire of lies began to tremble. By evening, I had arranged a meeting with people who could corroborate everything. Friends, relatives, even former colleagues who had noticed Zara's manipulations. Each person I spoke with added another layer of credibility to the truth. That night, Zara approached me in the kitchen, pretending to be concerned. "Are you feeling better?" she asked sweetly, her eyes scanning me for signs of weakness. I looked her straight in the eyes. "Better than you think," I said calmly, "and you should be careful. Every lie you've told is about to come back to you." She laughed softly, dismissive. "Oh, I don't worry about that. You think anyone would believe you over me?" I smiled faintly. "Not just me. Everyone you fooled, every person you've manipulated, they're starting to see the cracks. And when they do, karma has a way of catching up." Her eyes flickered for the briefest moment, a hint of uncertainty, but she quickly masked it with a confident smile. I knew then that the first tremors of her downfall had begun. As I went to my room that night, I whispered into the darkness, "Enjoy your victory while it lasts, Zara. The reckoning is coming, and it will be unstoppable." The following days were tense. Zara's confidence was unshakable, or at least that's what she wanted everyone to believe. I watched her carefully, noting the small cracks she left in her facade, a hesitation when speaking to Mom, a glance toward me that lingered too long, a sigh she thought went unnoticed. I met secretly with my cousin and the friends who had agreed to help. Together, we reviewed every piece of evidence, every message, every proof of manipulation.
Each detail was a thread, and together they formed a tapestry of lies that no one could ignore. One afternoon, I received a message from someone in Zara's circle. Anonymous, but clear. "She's starting to worry. She thinks you know something." A small smile crept across my face. Perfect. She feared me already, even before the exposure. That fear would only grow.
That evening, as Zara strutted around the house, pretending to be the charming, innocent daughter, I carefully planted a few documents where Dad would find them. A fake email thread Zara had created to frame me, a bank alert she had manipulated, little hints that pointed to the truth. Later, I overheard her on the phone, bragging to a friend about how she had ruined me completely. Her words were loud, careless, and damning. I memorized every syllable, every boast, every malicious smile. Karma was closer than she realized. When the house quieted down, I slipped into my room and organized everything. Every witness, every proof, every deceit. Tomorrow, it would all begin. Tomorrow, the truth would pierce the veil she had built, and the sister who thought she was untouchable would finally see the storm she had invited. I whispered into the dark, "Tomorrow, Zara, your victory ends, and the only thing waiting for you will be the consequences of your own lies." The next morning, I awoke with a determination that steadied every part of me. Today wasn't just another day. It was the day the truth would start to surface. I dressed carefully, making sure I looked composed, calm, almost indifferent. Zara needed to see nothing but normalcy. I left early, meeting with my cousin and the others who were ready to testify to her lies. We reviewed the timeline one last time, rehearsing how to present everything so the truth would hit like a hammer. Every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal laid bare and undeniable. Returning home, I could feel the tension in the air. Zara was already moving about, her confidence radiating. She had no idea how close she was to losing the very control she had so arrogantly assumed. I watched from a distance as Mom praised her for being so responsible, and Dad nodded approvingly. They still believed her facade, but I knew better. The tide was about to turn. That evening, I subtly left a few critical pieces of evidence on the dining table where my parents would see them. Bank alerts, email threads, screenshots of her messages boasting about framing me. I didn't say a word, didn't add commentary. I let the proof speak for itself. Zara came into the kitchen shortly after. She noticed the documents, her eyes narrowing. "What is this?" she asked innocently, but I could see her pulse quicken, the slightest tremor in her fingers betraying her. I looked at her calmly. "Truth, Zara. Something you've forgotten how to face." She forced a laugh, but I knew it was the first crack in her armor. Karma was no longer waiting. It was already at her doorstep. The next morning, the house felt heavier. Mom and Dad had spent hours going over the documents I had left out. I could sense the confusion in their voices, the hesitation, the doubt creeping in where certainty had been before. Zara tried to intervene, spinning stories, weaving excuses. "It's taken out of context," she said sharply, her voice tense, betraying the confidence she wanted to project. But each explanation stumbled under the weight of the evidence. Every lie she had so meticulously crafted was now unraveling in front of their eyes. Dad looked at me, his expression torn. "Is this true?" he asked, voice low, cautious. "Yes," I said simply. "Everything here is true. Everything Zara said about me was a lie, and she planned it all." Mom's face shifted between shock and disbelief. Her hands trembled as she reached for the emails and messages, reading line by line. Every boast, every manipulation, every calculated betrayal was now undeniable. Zara's composure began to crack.
I watched her shoulders slump slightly, the first genuine panic flashing in her eyes. She realized she had underestimated me, that her arrogance had blinded her to the one person she thought she had destroyed completely. I stepped closer, voice steady but sharp. You wanted to erase me. You wanted to control everything, but now everyone can see who you really are. For the first time, she was silent. She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it. Her perfect mask had fallen. Karma was here, and there was no escape. By mid-afternoon, the house was thick with tension. Mom and Dad were no longer angry at me. They were angry at Zara. Their trust in her facade had been shattered. I could feel the shift in the air, like a storm finally breaking after weeks of building pressure. Zara tried to defend herself. You don't understand. I only did what I had to. What you had to? You lied, manipulated, and tried to ruin our daughter's life. Do you realize what you've done? Mom's eyes were wet. I can't believe we were blind for so long. How could we not see this? Zara's bravado crumbled, her usual confidence replaced by panic. She had thought she could play this game forever, but every person who had witnessed her lies now had the truth. Every carefully planned step to destroy me was exposed. I remained calm, letting them take in the evidence. My voice was quiet, almost measured. I tried to protect you, all of you, from her lies. And now the truth is finally out. You see her as she really is.
Her face twisted with desperation. This isn't fair. You think you can ruin me the way I ruined you? I smiled faintly, coldly. I didn't have to. Karma is doing it for me. She looked around the room, seeing the faces of everyone she had manipulated, the realization hitting her that her reign was over. She could no longer control, charm, or lie her way out of this. And in that moment, I felt a sense of justice, a calm, deep satisfaction that the pain she had caused was finally meeting its reckoning. The following days were quiet, but the tension lingered like a shadow. Zara stayed in her room more often, avoiding eye contact, avoiding conversation, avoiding the very people she had tried to manipulate. Her arrogance had been replaced by fear. Fear of exposure, fear of judgment, fear of facing the consequences of her own actions. I spent time with Mom and Dad, helping them understand the full scope of what had happened. Each conversation reinforced their trust in me and dismantled the false narrative Zara had constructed. The bond that had been strained by lies was slowly healing. Then came the final confirmation. An external party, a lawyer, called by one of Zara's former friends, contacted my parents about financial discrepancies Zara had tried to hide. The truth about her manipulations wasn't just emotional anymore. It was legal. Her lies had tangible consequences. Zara tried to intervene again, but her attempts were weak, desperate. Everyone now saw through her. Her power had evaporated completely, replaced by isolation and the weight of accountability. That night, I sat alone, reflecting. The anger, the betrayal, the fear, they were all still there, but they had transformed into something stronger. Clarity, resilience, and the knowledge that truth had its way. Karma was no longer a distant concept. It was here, real, undeniable, and closing in. I whispered into the quiet house. You wanted to ruin me, Zara, but look at you now. The web you wove to destroy me has only trapped yourself. The first real peace I felt in months settled over me. Soft, but undeniable. The final act of her betrayal had set in motion the ultimate reckoning, and it was unstoppable. It was a quiet Sunday morning when everything finally came to a head. Zara had been avoiding the family entirely, confined to her room, her face pale and drawn. The arrogance that had once defined her was gone, replaced by fear and desperation. Every step she took outside her room was measured, careful, tentative. Mom and Dad called her into the living room. I watched silently, letting them speak. Their voices were calm but firm, full of authority they hadn't had before. The truth had restored their clarity, and now they demanded accountability. "Zara," Dad said, voice steady, "we trusted you, and you betrayed us. You lied, manipulated, and tried to destroy your own sister. This ends now." Zara tried to argue, but her words stumbled. There were no lies left to hide behind, no false charm to mask the reality. The evidence was overwhelming: messages, witnesses, financial proofs. Every manipulation she had thought would remain hidden had been exposed. Mom's voice was sharp, filled with the quiet fury of betrayal. "You wanted to erase her. You wanted to control everything. But look at yourself now. You are alone. No one trusts you. You've destroyed the person you should have loved the most, your own sister. And for what?" Her face crumpled, tears streaming down. But it was too late. The consequences of her actions were inescapable. I saw the weight of karma in her eyes, the recognition that the world she had tried to manipulate had finally turned against her. I took a deep breath, finally speaking. "You wanted to ruin me, Zara. You wanted to take everything I had, but the truth has a way of catching up. And now you face what you sown. This is the end of your lies." She sat there, powerless, exposed, and finally, just finally, aware that her cruelty had come full circle. In that moment, I felt a deep calm settle over me. Justice wasn't just served by my actions. It was the natural result of her own betrayal. The family healed slowly, the trust restored, and Zara left to face the consequences she had invited. And as I stood there, watching her realize the magnitude of her mistakes, I whispered softly to myself, "Karma always finds its way. You can't outrun it, and you can't hide from it. Not even you, Zara." The house was quiet after that. The storm had passed, and finally, after months of pain, betrayal, and planning, I felt the peace that comes from seeing truth and justice prevail.